Hello and welcome to another edition of the Willy-Nilly show. Today we have with us Mr. Larry Johnson to discuss a few global events that have happened in the last few weeks. And so without further ado, let's add him. Good morning, Mr. Johnson.
Hi there, how are you?
Well, it's a pleasure to have you back,
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's an honor. So, before we start discussing a few things that have happened in the world of geopolitics in the present year, which have been absolutely crazier compared to last year, I would like to discuss something which happened towards the end of last year, actually December end, when the European, the American, the Ukrainian, and the Russian leaders were huddled together in a room in Florida. So at that point in time, the Ukrainian Defense Forces did something which was absolutely unthinkable. So they flew 91 drones, apparently, allegedly, into the Volgograd region. And one of the targets was Mr. Putin's summer residence on Lake Valdai. So what is the truth behind it? Did the attack really happen? Because, though Mr. Putin did ask Sergei Lavrov to deliver a statement, but they didn't provide any evidence, any pictures, any proof. And even Moscow Times reported that the locals said that not 91, but only 18 drones were shot down that day, which were far away from Mr. Putin's residence, and which were, to be very honest, not headed towards his residence. So what is that real truth behind it? Could you throw some light on that, please?
Well, let's first be clear that on December 28th, there were no Russians meeting with Trump. The only person meeting with Trump was Volodymyr Zelensky.
Yeah.
So there wasn't anybody else. I reserved judgment on what happened until the CIA came out in a story to both the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post, in which they claimed, those drones weren't headed towards Putin's residence. They were going towards a military target. Well, that told me right away that absolutely the CIA helped Ukraine target Putin's residence. The reaction of the Russians was very angry, more so than in any, there have been a number of prior terrorist attacks. The, March 24 attack on the Crocus City Center, which left 143 people dead. You'd think that outraged the Russians, but they expressed more outrage and anger over this incident than they did over any of the previous terrorist attacks. So that tells me it was real, and the Russians certainly are treating it as real. But they just shoot all the drones down, and none of them hit the target. But I don't think Russia's making it up at all. And let's put it this way: even if they are, quote, making it up, they are reacting as if it happened. So, really, in the West, you can sit and argue whether it did or didn't happen, but it doesn't matter. Russia's treating it as if it happened. And they also went as far as to provide one of the controllers of one of the drones to the U.S. Defense Attaché, turned it over to him, said, "You'll take a look at this. It'll show you all the targeting data that was stored in it."
So, the reason I'm saying this is because the locals reported to Moscow Times that, that's not the truth, that we counted only 18, and they most certainly were not headed in that direction. They were far away. And also, you very rightly pointed out that only Zelensky met, President Trump. I was talking about slightly prior to that, when they were all huddled together in a room in Florida trying to hatch out that 28-point peace plan. So maybe Russia is trying to use this as a pretext to bomb the hell out of Ukraine and make them, surrender to that peace plan, because apparently they have some territorial dispute. They don't want the eastern Ukrainian region to be passed on to the Russians, and Russians want that because it's predominantly Russian-speaking people who are pro-Russian.
Yeah. So explain that to me, because I don't follow that logic. So Russia launched a military operation in February 2022, and early on, that operation was intended to provoke or push Ukraine into negotiations, which in fact it did. It succeeded.
Mhm.
And the negotiations were advancing until they were sabotaged by the United States and the United Kingdom. And then the war entered an entirely new phase. So why does Russia now need new incentive to escalate attacks? That's what I don't understand. I've heard
No,
that
no,
claim in the West, but I think it's complete, utter nonsense. But can you explain that logic to? I don't get it.
yeah, maybe because they like Steve Witkoff today. He's flying to Russia to talk to.
Well,
President
he's already there. They're already talking.
Yeah, because he said we're going to take care of the remaining 10% because 90% has already been,
Yeah, no, he's blowing smoke up his own ass. That's not true.
Yeah. So maybe what I'm thinking is I'm not pro or anti, whatever you are saying or I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is I'm trying to just understand as to why they didn't provide evidence of that attack, because Mr. Putin would have definitely provided it. That's number one. Number two is, since Zelensky from the get-go, he's not agreeing to that plan. He said, I do not want to give the entire Donbass region to Russia. So maybe Russia is trying to put pressure on Zelensky so that, when the Americans are not with him, and maybe the Europeans would be kind of scared and they will also agree to the deal. Because
look, I think Russia is the military strategy they're following is being set by the Russian general staff, not by Putin. Putin can veto certain and de-emphasize. So I think back in the fall of 2022, General Surovikin wanted to take out all of the electrical power stations in Ukraine and force them to be off the grid. That was Putin rejected that at the time, and the general staff went along with Putin. Now there's no longer a restraint on that. Russia is destroyed the thermal power, the thermal power plants, the hydroelectric power plants, the coal-fired power plants. The only thing they haven't hit directly are the nuclear power plants, and reports are they're going to go after the substations. So they won't hit the nuclear reactors, but they will hit the substations. And Ukraine will be totally plunged into the dark. And on that regard, it put Ukraine in a much more difficult situation.
Yeah, you're right, because immediately after the attack, Mr. Putin and Medvedev and Lavrov said that we have already made a list of the strategic targets and the timings, and we're definitely going to do it. And they did do it, because apart from the heavy drone attacks, they did the missile attacks, and also they used Oreshnik for only the second time during this war. So yeah, they were absolutely right. One thing which I want to ask you, Mr. Johnson, is this whole thing a fixed match between Mr. Putin and Mr. Trump and Russia and United States?
Well, what do you mean by that?
That, maybe the attack didn't happen and he will say it, and it will give him a pretext to launch an all-out final offensive against Ukraine.
No, I think so. The Russian perspective and Putin's perspective is that he views Witkoff as someone who has direct access to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He believes that Donald Trump is sincere about wanting to find a peaceful settlement. But what the obstacle they're running into is actually a couple of them. One is the fact that the CIA is lying, presenting Donald Trump with false information about what's going on the ground in Ukraine. Trump's being told that the Russians are losing 30,000 soldiers a month. Not true.
I know.
That the Russian army is inept, it's undersupplied, it's incompetently led. Not true. That the Russian economy is fragile and suffering. and that if you keep pressure on, they're going to collapse. Just another lie. But that's what Trump is being told by the CIA, and as such, it limits his ability. He's being told something different by Putin and by Dmitry, let's see, at least three different of Putin's advisors, Kirill Dmitriev being the most prominent non-governmental official involved.
Yeah,
So I was just going to say that Putin, they put a lot of stock in the conversations between Witkoff and believe that he can get the truth to Trump. That said, there is not going to be, for Russia to be satisfied with negotiations, there'll have to be a legally binding agreement. In other words, a treaty. And if it's a treaty with the United States, that means it has to be ratified by the U.S. Senate. I don't see that happening. So at best, what Russia can come out of this is a political agreement with Trump, but that they're not going to go to the bank on that. So that means the war will continue until Ukraine is militarily defeated.
One thing I want to ask you, I want to really understand from you, and I want you to draw from your vast experience as an intelligence analyst and as counterterrorism expert,
Sure.
and someone who's an expert in geopolitics. Because I read here and there many experts writing, many intelligence guys writing, that they want to, finish all the flashpoints, all the hotspots across the world, the deep state, along with the major powers of the world. It has already been agreed upon that Ukraine will go to Russia, that America will take Greenland and Venezuela, China will take Taiwan, India, Pakistan will be solved, because we are moving towards a new world order. And instead of America being the sole superpower in the world, we're moving towards multipolarity, where there will be regional players, exercising regional hegemony.
Yeah.
So is this entire thing, Ukraine thing, about de-dollarization and multipolarity and separating, the Europeans from America?
Well, some of that may be involved, but I'd like to explore with you. And so, what does it mean that the United States takes control of Greenland? I know that's what Trump is saying.
Yeah.
Lay that out for me. What does that mean? Does that mean we're going to put troops in there and take control of the government?
Well, without that, how can they exercise control over that harsh terrain?
Yeah. Well, and then we keep hearing this crap about, the Greenland has all these rare earth minerals. We need those rare earth minerals. I don't know how much I keep explaining this over and over to people, and they don't get it. Yeah, I need to maybe try to use sign language or something. The United States has abundant supplies of rare earth minerals. We have them. I have them 30 miles north of me. There is a mining company called Mosaic Mining that has tons of rare earth minerals. The problem is they're not processed.
Yes.
So you don't have processing plants in Greenland. You don't have processing plants in Venezuela. You have the same damn raw materials that we got here in Florida. It's the one who's got the processing? China.
China.
That's why China has control over supplies of rare earth minerals, because they have the processing capability. They process it, so now they got the final product, whether it's germanium or antimony, but they process it. So we're not going up to Greenland to build a processing plant. So what they've got, quote, rare earth minerals in the ground. Okay, mine them. That's going to take years to develop. So, I mean, since 1951, the United States has had an agreement in place with Greenland, basically that, hey, we can deploy troops there, and we can use the air bases for U.S. Air operations. None of that's changed. It's not like I could understand Trump taking this action against Greenland if Greenland was saying, hey, we want to shut down all U.S. bases. We want the U.S. the hell out. But that hasn't happened. And so, if anything, they've been willing to give the United States, everything we've asked for. So that's why I say this notion, Trump right now is pushing this narrative, oh, we got control of Greenland, or we got control of Venezuela.
Yep.
Again, how do we have control of Venezuela? The government, Maduro's government, and many of Maduro's ministers are still in charge running the government. And the political party, the leaders of his political party are still quite active. So what exactly is it that we're running or governing or controlling?
Yeah, and since we're talking about Greenland now, I had planned to discuss it towards the end, but let's jump straight into Greenland. So I think I'm in agreement with many people who believe that Greenland, apart from being very strategically located, it will help America to balance out China and Russia. It is a very strategic spot. It is closer to the North American marshland rather than the controlling country Denmark and Europe. So the reason behind this move by America, well, the best reason, according to me, which I've been racking my brains about it, is that artificial intelligence in data centers are going to be really big and control the world because information is the key. So a cold country is more conducive for data centers and artificial intelligence, and also it has got plenty of fresh water. And in order to manufacture one single chip, it requires 10,000 liters of fresh water.
Yeah, but it also requires electrical power. Where are you going to get that?
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, that's one of the biggest challenges right now to the expansion of AI in the United States. They can build the factory space, but who's going to generate the electrical power? In some areas, they're already seeing people's utility bills are going up because of the increased demand for a limited amount of electricity. That's why I say this Greenland thing doesn't make sense. The idea, they've got to be there to defend against Russia and China. Russia and China aren't attacking anybody. I mean, they say, well, look at what Russia did to Ukraine. Yeah, Russia was provoked into that, and I can make the case. And Scott Horton's written quite a book on it. But China invading other countries? Give me a break. Where have they invaded in the last 46 years? Nowhere.
After Vietnam, none.
That's 47 years ago. And why did they do that? Do you know why China, quote, fought Vietnam 47 years ago? Because Vietnam was attacking Cambodia. So it was a reaction, a military reaction to support an ally. And China got its ass kicked. So it's not like they proved themselves to be some military force of great competence. It's the United States. Yeah. Look, the only country in the world that over the last 60 years has killed, that was responsible for the deaths of at least 2 million civilians, has established over 750 military bases.
800,
has been involved, huh?
I think count is more than 800, I think.
Last I saw was 750, but I've heard the number 800, but I don't know if that's valid. But the point is, it's the United States. If the definition of terrorism is the use of violence against civilians to accomplish political purposes, if that's the definition, then the United States is the number one terrorist country in the world. Period. Nobody else is close.
Yeah. They say actually that America is the number one terrorist nation in the world, and CI is the number one terrorist organization in the world, and that media organizations or houses like CNN, Al Jazeera, and BBC are the biggest terrorist media empires of the world.
Yeah, well,
you're right.
They're the big facilitators of it anyway, or perpetuating the myth.
Yeah, but Al Jazeera is owned by CIA. I mean, that's what I know, that they started it. So
that I don't know. but I am confident that the CIA is active on social media in a variety of ways,
Yeah.
and has been very active with Google and Facebook,
And
previously Twitter.
Twitter. Twitter, I think, was more FBI, wasn't it? Because they used to sit inside.
Well, it's not mutually exclusive.
Okay. They
That's
help each other out. Yeah.
that's the thing.
So, I want to discuss the Monroe Doctrine, which President Trump once, blurted out, Monroe Doctrine. So,
Yeah.
if America does take over Greenland, then they'll have, because Greenland is closer to the Canadian, you know.
Well, actually, if the U.S. takes over Greenland, that's a violation of the Monroe Doctrine. So what the Monroe Doctrine means, based upon the speech that was given by James Monroe, president, in 1823, he said the following: the United States is not going to interfere in the affairs of European countries that already have colonies here in the United States. We're going to not interfere with them, and we expect them not to interfere with us. However, if a European state comes in and tries to impose by force its form of government and control on a particular territory in the Western Hemisphere, then the United States would oppose that, fight that. The Monroe Doctrine said nothing at all about the United States being the power in this hemisphere who has the right to decide what country can have relations with what other country overseas. In other words, so with respect to Venezuela, we're going to say, oh, well, we're not going to allow Venezuela to have relations with Russia, China, or Iran. Well, sorry, that's not the Monroe Doctrine. I think you're correct to characterize it as the Donroe, the Donald Trump doctrine. But it had nothing to do with the Monroe Doctrine. And most Americans, unfortunately, they've heard the name, but they don't know nothing about what was actually said in that speech by James Monroe.
Okay. Because if what you're saying is incorrect, and if we consider it true, then it makes sense for US to have complete control over North America, Central America, South America, and with Greenland in the kitty, they have complete control over the Western Hemisphere.
Well, yeah, there's the Monroe Doctrine didn't say a damn thing about the United States being the preeminent one to control. In fact, I would argue the Monroe Doctrine lasted about 23 years until 1846, when President Polk launched the war against Mexico.
Yeah, and recently in a press conference at the White House, President Donald J. Trump said that, unlike my predecessors, I want to practice Monroe Doctrine in letter and spirit, and that's exactly what I'm doing in Venezuela.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you something. Yesterday, actually, I loved President Donald J. Trump yesterday at Davos. He came down heavily on the hypocritical European leaders. And he was pretty right in saying that had it not been for the Americans, and I would add Russians also, they would have been speaking German or some other language, maybe Italian and Japanese.
Yeah. Well, again, Trump is just displaying his ignorance. World War II, with respect to the Germans, was won by the Soviets, not the West. Yeah. The West helped. If this was a movie, the lead actor was the Soviet Union.
I did add that.
The best supporting, you could call us the best supporting actor, but we only fought 30% of the German army. We only inflicted a small number of casualties on the Germans. The Russians, they endured the most, they suffered the most, and they had the most major battles.
Because I had read about it that they had a wonderful strategy and plan in place. They knew about their terrain, their weather. So they kind of retreated, and the Germans thought they're retreating. They kept moving ahead in the snow. They were buried in the snow. So that was also.
But again, Trump is, and we forget, the United States takes all the credit for winning these wars.
Yeah.
in Trump world, and even in the case of the war in the Pacific, yeah, that one was primarily the government of Japan was defeated primarily with U.S. Military force. However, that we neglect the fact that the Chinese were fighting 70% of the Japanese army throughout World War II in the Pacific. That the United States was actually only facing 30% of the Japanese forces. So imagine, if you will, if the Chinese had already lost and the Russians were providing military support to China, if China had lost, then there's another 70% of the Japanese army that could have been unleashed on the United States in the Pacific, and the war might have had a very different outcome.
Yeah, and before we jump on to Venezuela, I want to quickly discuss something with you, which is related to Greenland. So they were wanting to attack Iran first. Then all of a sudden, in haste, they switched all their, focus on Greenland. Is it because of the fact that during this little skirmish that happened in June with Israel, almost 40% of the missiles landed? They were able to breach the security, the defense system of Israel. So
Yeah.
now they still have close to 20,000 missiles. I don't know the exact number, but it is, and most of them are hypersonic.
Yes.
So are they scared that it's going to obliterate a country the size of New Jersey, even if 40% sneak in? That's why they are focusing all their energy on Greenland.
Well, okay. Who did you say is the size of New Jersey?
Israel.
Oh, Israel. Yeah. I thought you were saying Iraq or Iran.
No.
I'm going, holy smokes, no.
No.
No, look, actually, I don't think the Trump administration has shifted its focus from Iran at all. They continue to build up military assets. The Abraham Lincoln, the aircraft carrier, is en route there right now. It may have already arrived. There are transport aircraft, C-5A Galaxy, C-17s, KC-135s, air refuelers are flooding in. No, I think the United States is going to attack Iran. I don't know if it'll be next week or next month or by the end of March, but it's coming. They're going to do it. What happened with the whole Greenland thing has been let's call it a quiet obsession of Trump. But I'm not sure we'll ever find the real reason why they're doing Greenland. This notion they got to stop the Russian and the Chinese. Russia, 53% of the Arctic region is bordered by Russia. Okay, then you've got Canada, in the northern parts of Canada that border, another 40%, and then you've just got, or I guess roughly about 30%, and then you have the Atlantic Ocean, Greenland, and the Bering Strait, and between Alaska and Russia. The issue is, the Trump and team are talking about exploiting Greenland for natural resources and using it as a base for, quote, controlling the Arctic. Now, I'm not sure what the hell they're going to control up there. But when it comes to the practical, who's got the capability, Russia right now has 10 nuclear-powered icebreakers and 20 conventionally powered icebreakers.
In total, they have 48 ice cutters compared to one owned by America.
Yeah. Well, the U.S. has 2, but one of them's broken. So, I mean, again, this is just completely absurd. So, I don't know what game they're playing. It's much like a fantasy game, but the trying to pick a fight with Russia as opposed to saying how can we cooperate with Russia is just an insane policy. And I need to give you, the 1 minute warning because I've got another.
Okay. Just let's wrap it up with Venezuela. How good or bad was it?
Again, it's all smoke and mirrors. Venezuela only pumps out 700,000 barrels of oil a day. That's less than 2% of global oil supply. So I don't see how less than 2% of global oil supply is going to be any kind of game changer for the United States. Plus, the cost of processing Venezuelan oil is much higher, refining it than oil out of even out of fracking in the United States. So,
Yeah, but
and the drug charge, they're not the center of narcotics trafficking, particularly fentanyl. 99% of the fentanyl seizures take place on the border of Mexico.
yeah, it comes from China. The plants are,
This is there's some other skullduggery afoot.
Yeah, that's what they're saying, that this time it wasn't a military operation. It's perfectly legal because the Department of Justice worked with the Delta team, and we brought a convict,
Yeah.
let's say a person who is an arms trader and a drug dealer or a drug baron, as they say.
Yeah, that's how we're painting it.
Yeah, yeah. But
Hey, listen,
yeah.
I appreciate the invitation. Next time I'll try to have more time available for you.
No worries, no worries, sir, no worries. We'll discuss it, and your knowledge is well appreciated.
All right, George. Hey, listen, thanks so much.
Yeah. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.